Hi, I'm Kate DeMio, and I will be going over the middle level reading support program in Lake Orion Community Schools. We have multiple tiers of intervention in the middle school. The first tier is Tier 1. During this tier, students benefit from conferring and small group instruction provided by the ELA teacher inside of the language arts classroom. In Tier 2, we have multiple options. The first is LSS. This is one research-based intervention. It's done with the student 3 times a week for 15 minutes. This is taught by an interventionist or an LSS support personnel. In Tier 2, we also have the option of taking curriculum support. It's 50 minutes of research-based interventions. Students are assigned one intervention, which they complete 4 times a week for 30 minutes. They have additional interventions with the remaining time. The class size is kept to 12 or under. The teacher has the full-time support of an interventionist. Also in Tier 2 is AARI. This is a 50-minute class. This is one research-based intervention. It's done the entire period by a trained classroom teacher. We keep the course size under 10. Therefore, it may or may not need the support of an interventionist. And then at Tier 3, we start to look into special education. This visual shows you how the instruction, many kids benefit from the Tier 1, and while as it narrows down, fewer and fewer students benefit from the services of, say, an IEP. All of the middle schools offer LSS at 6th and 7th grade. At times we can also offer it at 8th grade, but that's, of course, caseload dependent. We also offer curriculum support at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And we offer AARI at 6th grade. At times we can also offer AARI at additional grades, or we might offer curriculum support only one term, not both. This again depends on how many students we have and whether or not that warrants a complete class. This is a visual showing that progression. We often get a lot of questions about how LSS is scheduled. LSS is scheduled for 15 minutes 3 times a week. Individual buildings can decide how they would like to do this pull-out program. Some options would be to pull the students every day from STAR. Another option would be to pull them from their elective. And then a final option would be to pull them from 15 minutes 3 times a week, but pull it from a jigsaw schedule. Like, for example, you might pull 15 minutes from science, 15 minutes from social studies, and 15 minutes from ELA. Let's take a look at what you need to qualify to receive some of these services. For LSS, you need to be proficient or partially proficient and below proficiency on at least one district assessment. If we don't have enough students to fill the LSS caseload, it is possible that someone who passed within a margin of 5 points might also be added to this caseload. In curriculum support, we look for an M-step to be not proficient or partially proficient. We look for at least 2 district assessments to be below proficiency. Again, if space allows, we might open up that window on the M-step to include those students who are the bubble students and are within about 5 points of passing, but when this happens, they must have 2 district assessments below proficiency. Finally, AARI, their M-step must be not proficient. They must have multiple assessments below benchmark. Your goal here is to have the most severe students or the students that need the most support in the AARI class. Just a note, when we place students for the first semester, we use the most current data we have at the time that we need to turn in our placements. This is typically like March data, and so we will try to do our best to update as new data becomes available, and at times that will cause us to have to make some course adjustments. In second semester, you'll see that the criteria is very similar, although you see, especially in curriculum support, that we start to open that class up to students that have a documented history of difficulty and those students who might be at risk for not passing the upcoming M-step. At times, the LSS caseload can be larger than the number of hours our grant supports. When that happens, a building might put additional filters. Like, for example, they might say we can only service students with a TC score or a QRI score below a certain level. All right, let's do some scenarios and see if we can figure out whether or not these students would qualify for support. A student fails the first quarter common assessment. They need a little extra support with main idea and inferring, but they were proficient on the M step. What's the plan? If you said Tier 1, meet them inside of the classroom, you are correct. Let's try another scenario. The student has missing assignments and poor grades in ELA, but they are proficient on the M step. What's the plan? Again, in this particular situation, we'll have to depend on the classroom teacher inside of Tier 1 to support this student. The student would not qualify for any additional services. What if the student has some of the lowest oral reading scores in the grade level, but were proficient on the M step? And all of their other assessments? Again, this would be inside of the classroom. And this one is the hardest, I think, because if the fluency is not affecting their overall performance, like the M step or other district assessments, then really we don't want to place a Tier 2 intervention on that. We can just do some work inside of the classroom. Student number 4 scored partially proficient on the M step. He has a history of below grade level fluency, including this year's data. But all the other data on the student shows the student to be proficient. In this case, LSS would probably be the best option. Can parents deny curriculum support? Yes, they can. Most commonly, you'll have a middle school parent call and discuss this with the counselor. The counselor then has to ask permission of the administrator before moving the student. At the high school, the process is a little more involved and doesn't include a meeting with an ELA teacher, counselor, administrator, sometimes myself. Are there any other times when a child would be in LSS over curriculum support or AARI, even if they qualify? Yes, we do this sometimes, especially with 8th graders in the event that they have band and Spanish and are unable to fit curriculum support in class. If you find yourself teaching curriculum support, here are some important things to note. That when a student enters or exits curriculum support, we use the following assessments to determine the effectiveness of our intervention. We use an iReady diagnostic, we use a QRI or TC score, and we use either an Ames-Webb or a FastBridge. These tests are also entered into Illuminate. Both iReady and FastBridge or Ames automatically upload, but for QRI or TC, these will have to be manually entered. Once a student is in curriculum support, we determine whether or not they would most benefit from Read Live or iReady as their primary intervention. This intervention will happen 4 times a week for 30 minutes. For the 5th day and the additional 20 minutes, there are other research-based options available. In LSS, we use quick reads, conferring, shared reading, and guided reading. In AARI, we use AARI, which must be taught by a trained staff member. It can be difficult to decide whether or not iReady or Read Live would be the best intervention for a student. One thing to keep in mind is that fluency is generally worked on first. It's considered a precursor to comprehension. So if the child has never had an iReady, if the child has never had a Read Live intervention and scores low, this might be a good place to start. A day in curriculum support might typically look like this. You might have one group of 4 kids that are doing iReady. They would be on the computer 4 times a week for 30 minutes. Then they might independently read for 20 minutes. And once a week, they might independently read for the whole hour with the teacher working on conferring based on their iReady report. Alternatively, a second group of 5 kids might also do the computers for 4 times a week for 30 minutes, but they'll be doing Read Live. Then they'll independently read for 20 minutes 4 times a week, and then on the 5th day, they might read for the whole time and you might confer. What you can do is maybe have group 1 have their independent reading day on Monday and group 2 have their independent reading day on Friday, so that the groups alternate the independent reading days. This is a sample AARI diagnostic report. This, if you zoom in on it, you can see that it has like vocabulary and comprehension. It tells you what the high priority goals are for the child and groups them with other students in your curriculum support class that might have similar goals. We do progress monitor in curriculum support, AARI, and LSS. We primarily use anecdotal notes. We also use the iReady Growth Monitor and the Read Live AIMS probes, or you can substitute those for FastBridge probes. Okay, so just to recap what you can and cannot do in curriculum support. In curriculum support, students can do independent reading as long as they have conferring or strategy groups happening. They can do read aloud, they can do book clubs, they can do iReady, quick reads, or read live. What they cannot do is finish papers, read without conferring, do worksheets, finish writing assignments, complete homework, tests read aloud, and do teacher pay teacher packets. Okay, so following the course, what data needs to be collected? Keep in mind your conferring notes. You should hold on to those for the child for at least a year. That can be digitally or in paper. You will also, after the course is over, have to update learning styles to reflect what the child did in the course. This needs to be done by the general education teacher, not the LSS. And you'll want to update Illuminate, making sure that for every child that was in curriculum support, there is both a pre-test and a post-test. If you have any questions, you can follow up with Kate DeMio at a later date. Thanks.